Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking an absolute masterclass in corporate strategy. If you've ever looked at a crowded, fiercely competitive market and wondered, how on earth a newcomer can not just survive, but literally dominate, well, you are going to absolutely love this one. We're digging into Daikin's incredible growth story in the Indian air conditioning market. And look, this isn't just a story about cooling systems. It's a brilliant blueprint for building a premium brand in an emerging economy.
Okay, let's dive into this with a massive central question that pretty much every business leader faces. How exactly do you win a price war? Well, Daikin's answer is actually pretty simple: by refusing to play. Historically, India is known as a highly price-sensitive, developing market. For decades, the standard playbooks for foreign brands entering India was just to strip down their products, cut corners, and slash prices to the absolute bottom just to get people to buy. But Daikin? They looked at that race to the bottom, completely ignored it, and built a massive footprint by doing the exact opposite.
So here's our roadmap for today as we break down these textbook marketing frameworks into an actionable premium playbook. First, we'll look at the premium pricing puzzle. Second, targeting the right consumer. Third, executing the marketing mix. Fourth, battling intense market competition. And finally, securing a sustainable future. Let's get right into it.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the premium pricing puzzle. We're setting up the core challenge here, which is, how do you sell expensive technology in a booming, yet incredibly cost-conscious market?
To really appreciate the scale of this puzzle, we got to rewind back to the year 2000. That's when Daikin first entered the Indian market as a subsidiary of its massive Japanese parent company, Daikin Industries. At the time, the Indian middle class was growing super fast, but domestic and international competitors were out there aggressively slashing prices to capture market share. And then Daikin arrives with this advanced, quite expensive Japanese engineering. So they faced a critical choice, right? Do they compromise their brand identity to compete on price, or hold their ground and establish themselves as an uncompromisingly premium brand offering residential, commercial, and industrial cooling solutions? Well, they chose the latter, and honestly, that set the stage for everything that followed.
Let's move to Section 2, targeting the right consumer, and see how this builds into their targeting strategy. Because finding the right buyer was step 1. If you're selling a premium product, you can't just market to everyone, right? Look at the contrast here. Daikin didn't just look at demographics. Sure, they targeted middle and upper income households, plus institutional buyers like commercial buildings, hospitals, and educational institutions. But what really set them apart was their focus on psychographics. They weren't just hunting for wealthy wallets. They were targeting a very specific mindset. They went after environment-conscious consumers, buyers who prioritize quality and durability. And most importantly, they targeted businesses and owners seeking long-term operational efficiency. They basically realized that if they could convince a buyer that spending more upfront meant massive savings on their electricity bill over the next 10 years, well, suddenly that premium price becomes an investment, not an expense.
Moving on to Section 3, executing the marketing mix. This is the absolute core of their playbook, where we unpack the actual 4 Ps of their execution strategy. Having a great target audience is really just theory until you act on it. So the crucial point is their execution engine. Daikin deployed a seamless 4-step execution engine to transform that audience into loyal buyers. Step 1, product innovation. Step 2, premium value pricing. So charging a premium but backing it up with undeniable value. Step 3 is ubiquitous placement, getting the product exactly where the consumer shops. And step 4 is strategic promotion. Let's break down what these actually look like in practice.
Under product and price, everything hinges on the tech. Daikin leaned heavily into advanced Japanese engineering, specifically things like inverter technology and the eco-friendly R32 refrigerant. Let's actually demystify that jargon for a second. Inverter technology basically allows the air conditioner to run at varying speeds, rather than just violently blasting on and off, and that results in significantly lower electricity consumption. Throw in PM 2.5 air filtration, smart Wi-Fi connectivity, and super quiet operation. You have a product that practically sells itself on quality. These technological features are the exact reasons they can charge a premium. Because they aren't just selling cold air, right? They're selling massive long-term energy savings and environmental responsibility.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is their placement strategy. You'd normally think a premium brand would only focus on the biggest metropolitan hubs, places like Mumbai or Delhi. But no, Daikin built a massive nationwide distribution network. Yes, they absolutely have exclusive Daikin solution plazas and authorized dealers, but they also integrated deeply with modern retail chains and e-commerce platforms. And here's the kicker. They expanded aggressively into Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. They recognize that aspiration and wealth are growing rapidly outside of India's megacities, and they position these distribution powerhouses perfectly to capture all that emerging demand.
To round out the marketing mix, we've got to look at promotion. Because how do you soften the blow of a premium price tag at the checkout counter? Well, Daikin heavily concentrates their promotional campaigns right before the summer season, which is obviously when demand peaks. But they don't just run your standard traditional ads. They use highly tactical promotions. They offer EMI, that's equated monthly installment, finance schemes to make that big upfront cost easily manageable on a monthly basis. They roll out summer exchange offers, and crucially, they pump out digital education content across YouTube and social media to actually teach consumers exactly why this inverter technology saves them money. It's really an integrated masterclass in reducing purchase friction.
All right, Section 4, Battling Intense Market Competition. Because we have to acknowledge the realities of the battlefield here. Daikin's strategy definitely isn't executed in a vacuum.
The realities of the market in India are harsh, and Daikin faces some serious headwinds, and this brilliantly illustrates their vulnerabilities alongside their strengths. Looking at their SWOT matrix, their strengths are completely undeniable: global tech leadership, robust R&D, and strong India manufacturing facilities. But look over at the weaknesses and threats. Their premium pricing strictly limits them from capturing the entry-level, highly price-sensitive segment. Plus, they're highly dependent on seasonal demand. And the threats are significant. We're talking fluctuating raw material costs and intense price competition from domestic brands. So Daikin's entire strategy relies on using their core strengths in innovation and energy efficiency to completely offset the distinct threat of that intense domestic price competition.
And let's be very clear about who they're fighting against here. The Indian AC market is an absolutely crowded house. You have massive domestic giants like Blue Star and Voltus. You have South Korean titans like LG Electronics and Samsung. And you've got global stalwarts like Hitachi, Panasonic, and Carrier. Just the sheer volume of these heavy-hitting rivals really emphasizes how fiercely contested this space is. Every single one of these brands is fighting tooth and nail for market share, which makes the fact that Daikin has become one of the fastest-growing air conditioning brands in the country incredibly impressive.
Which brings us to Section 5, Securing a Sustainable Future. Let's focus on exactly how Daikin plans to maintain this massive momentum and hold on to their market share.
Daikin knows they can't just rest on their laurels to keep winning. Their future strategy relies really heavily on blending global sustainability trends with massive local manufacturing pushes under the Make in India initiative. So they're aggressively expanding their localized manufacturing capacity. And this does two big things. First, it shields them from global supply chain shocks and import duties, and second, it builds immense local goodwill. But they're also blending this local push with global sustainability goals. They're actively reducing greenhouse gas emissions through green manufacturing practices and really pushing the market towards smart, connected, eco-friendly cooling. So they aren't just selling hardware anymore, they are positioning themselves as a highly responsible, forward-thinking tech company.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway. Daikin proved that even in a developing, heavily price-sensitive market, a race to the bottom is not the only way to win. By relentlessly focusing on quality, energy efficiency, and long-term customer value, they literally built a premium empire. So I'll leave you with this question to apply to your own business strategies, your own products, or hey, even your own career. In a world absolutely flooded with cheap alternatives, is your brand delivering enough undeniable, long-term value to justify a premium? It's a tough question for sure, but as Daikin shows us, if you can answer yes, the growth potential is limitless. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.